On the evening of March 15th, 2025, a 31-year-old Black American woman, Maya Johnson, sat alone in a worn booth at Murray's Diner, a modest haven tucked amid Manhattan's restless pulse. The diner's warm glow contrasted with the cold rain tapping the windows, creating a cocoon against the urban night. Before her, a slice of chocolate cake bore a single candle, its flame flickering like a fragile hope. It was her birthday, but no one had called, texted, or knocked on her door. The absence wasn't new. Maya's life, shaped by 17 foster homes, had taught her that milestones often passed unnoticed. Yet, at 31, solitude felt heavier, like a ledger balanced with losses. No family, no close friends, no one to share the quiet victories of her day. Maya adjusted her glasses, her dark eyes reflecting the candle's light on her smooth, deep brown skin. By day, she worked as an accountant at Carter & Sons, a small firm where her master's degree in accounting was overshadowed by her supervisor, Patricia's relentless critiques. That morning, Patricia had questioned every line of Maya's work on the Thompson Industries file, not for errors, but to assert dominance. Detail-oriented assistant, Patricia had called her in a team meeting, the words stinging like a demotion, despite Maya's 3 years of meticulous work. Numbers were her refuge, reliable, predictable, unlike the foster families who promised permanence only to send her back when bonds grew too complex. But today, even the order of spreadsheets couldn't dull the ache of celebrating alone. She stirred her coffee, the clink of the spoon against the mug, blending with the diner's hum, the sizzle of fries, the low chatter of late-night regulars, the occasional laugh from Sally, the 50-year-old white waitress whose sharp wit masked a weary kindness. Maya's life was a careful routine. Work, her small studio apartment, the occasional nod to Mrs. Lin, her 78-year-old Chinese-American neighbor, who left dumplings by her door with notes about eating vegetables. Friends were a luxury she hadn't afforded since aging out of foster care at 18. Social media reminders might have prompted a text or two in years past, but Maya had deactivated her accounts, tired of the hollow connections they offered. Birthdays, she'd learned, were just another day to survive. The candle's flame wavered, casting shadows across the table's chipped formica. Maya closed her eyes, her braided hair brushing her shoulders as she leaned forward. A wish formed, unbidden, in her mind. Not for love or wealth, which seemed too distant, but for something simpler, more urgent. I wish I didn't feel so tired of being alone. The thought surprised her with its raw honesty. For years, she'd built walls, convincing herself independence was strength, that needing no one meant freedom. But in this quiet moment, the truth settled like a heavy quilt. She was exhausted by solitude, by being the only witness to her own life. She blew out the candle, the smoke curling upward into the diner's recycled air. For a fleeting second, Maya let herself imagine someone might hear her wish somewhere. The bell above the door chimed, cutting through her reverie, and a gust of cold air swept in. A man entered, his presence shifting the room's rhythm. Ethan Caldwell, a 40-year-old white American, shook rain from his dark hair, his pale skin flushed from the chill. His worn leather jacket and tired blue eyes suggested a man who carried his burdens. He slid into the booth across from Maya, close enough for her to notice the lines etched around his eyes, the slight tremble in his hands as he gripped a coffee mug Sally brought without asking. Their eyes met across the narrow aisle, a silent exchange passing between them, not recognition of faces, but of souls who knew the weight of midnight loneliness. "Rough night?" Ethan asked, his voice low, rough around the edges like gravel underfoot. Maya hesitated, her instinct to retreat warring with the warmth in his tone. "Birthday," she said, the word heavier than she intended. Ethan's gaze softened, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. Happy birthday, Maya, he said, as if he'd known her name forever. The words landed in her chest, unexpected and warm, like a spark in the dark. Sally paused by their table, wiping her hands on her apron. You two look like you could use some company tonight, she teased, her voice a nudge toward connection. If this story's hitting you folks, hit that like button. It keeps these tales coming. And drop a comment. Ever spent a birthday alone, wishing for someone to notice? Maya gathered her purse, ready to retreat to her apartment's familiar silence. But Ethan's quiet presence held her there, a promise of something yet unnamed. Outside, the rain intensified, washing the city clean. Inside Murray's, two strangers sat in the glow of a shared moment, unaware that this night would weave the first thread of a new family. Hey, if Maya's story moves you, subscribe to catch the next chapter of her journey. Your thoughts in the comments mean the world. Tell us about a time a stranger's kindness changed your day. On March 18, 2025, Maya Johnson pushed through the glass door of Murray's Diner, the bell chiming above her like a hesitant welcome. It was 6:30 p.m., and the Manhattan evening buzzed outside, a blur of taxis and hurried footsteps. Her detour from Carter & Sons Accounting wasn't planned. She'd told herself she needed milk from the corner market, but the truth lingered in her quickened pulse as she scanned the diner. In the same booth as 3 nights ago, Ethan Caldwell sat, his leather jacket draped over the seat, his hands wrapped around a steaming coffee mug. His tired eyes lifted, and a surprise flickered into something warmer. Maya, he said, his voice a quiet anchor. I was hoping you'd come back. She slid into the booth across from him, her purse tucked against her side, her braided hair catching the diner's soft glow. The air smelled of fresh fries and old vinyl, a familiar comfort. Sally, the waitress, materialized with a coffee pot and a knowing grin. You two are becoming regulars, system. Regulars, she teased, pouring Maya a cup. Gonna share a story with us about second chances? Drop it in the comments. Keeps the good vibes going. Maya's cheeks warmed at the nudge, but she nodded, settling into the booth's cracked vinyl. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly, as if her presence eased an unseen weight. Rough day? He asked, echoing their first exchange. Maya sipped her coffee, the bitter warmth grounding her. Long day, she said, thinking of the endless spreadsheets and Patricia's sharp remarks at work. Numbers don't argue, but people do. Ethan's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. I get that. I'm dodging sleep myself. Too many thoughts that won't quit. Their conversation began cautiously, like stepping onto thin ice. Maya spoke of her job and how the accounting order gave her control in a chaotic world. Ethan listened, his gaze steady, not with pity, but with quiet understanding. He said, I used to help people sort through their chaos, his fingers tracing the mug's rim. Therapist. I had an office, degrees on the wall, and the works. Then I lost a patient, and it all fell apart. His voice carried a raw edge, not self-pity, but a weight he couldn't shake. Maya's chest tightened. She knew loss, not of people, but of homes, hopes, the fleeting promise of family. What happened? She asked, her voice soft. Ethan's eyes drifted to the rain-streaked window. His name was Noah. 19. Brilliant kid, but he was drowning in his head. I thought he was getting better. Then he called me one night, scared. I told him to call a crisis line. He didn't make it to morning. The words hung heavy, and Maya saw the tremor in his hand as he set the mug down. Sally reappeared, sliding a plate of fries between them. Not too golden or burnt, just how you weirdos like 'em, she said, winking. Hey, folks, if this story's got you hooked, hit that subscribe button. We've got more heart tuggers coming. Maya grabbed a fry, her mind turning over Ethan's words. "You blame yourself," she said. "Not a question." Ethan nodded every day. "I was supposed to see the signs. I failed him." The diner's hum faded as Maya leaned forward. "I don't know much about therapy, but I know about failing. In foster care, you learn to expect it. From yourself, from others. You keep going anyway." Ethan's eyes met hers, searching. "How do you do that? Keep going?" She paused, surprised by her answer. "You find something that feels true, like this place. It's not much, but it's real." Sally, passing by, chuckled. "Real greasy, you mean? Share a greasy diner moment in the comments, y'all. Makes my day." Ethan's smile was faint but genuine. "You're right. This place, these fries, they're real." He pushed the plate toward her. "So what's your truth, Maya? What keeps you going?" Her breath caught. No one had asked her that in years. "Numbers," she said finally. "They don't lie, don't leave. But lately, I've been wondering if that's enough." The admission felt like stepping off a ledge, but Ethan's nod held no judgment, only recognition. He shared more, his voice low. "I've been taking odd jobs, barista, delivery guy. Nights, I volunteer at a hotline to make up for what I missed with Noah. It's not enough, but it's something." Maya pictured him in a coffee shop apron, answering calls in the dark, piecing himself together. "It's more than most would do," she said. Their eyes locked, a current of understanding passing between them. Fragile, but undeniable. As they left the diner, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Ethan paused under the awning. "Thanks for sitting with me, Maya. Means more than you know." She smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in days. "See you around, Ethan." Sally's voice called from inside. "Yo, lovebirds, like the video if you're rooting for these two." Maya laughed, shaking her head, and stepped into the night, the promise of their next meeting already tugging at her. On March 25th, 2025, Maya Johnson navigated the crowded Manhattan sidewalks, her heels clicking against the pavement as she took the familiar detour to Murray's Diner. The spring evening was crisp, the city's pulse a mix of honking taxis and chatter spilling from open storefronts. It had been a week since her last visit, and though she told herself it was just for coffee, the anticipation of seeing Ethan Caldwell quickened her steps. Inside, the diner's warm glow welcomed her, the bell above the door chiming softly. Ethan sat in their booth, his leather jacket slung over the seat, his fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on a coffee mug. His tired eyes brightened as she approached. "Maya," he said, his voice a mix of relief and warmth. "Thought you might have gotten tired of this place." She slid into the booth, her braided hair catching the light as she set her purse down. "Not yet," she replied, a half smile tugging at her lips. "The coffee's bad, but the company's decent." Sally, the waitress, appeared with a pot and a grin. "Decent? I'm serving you gold here," she teased, pouring Maya a cup. "Hey folks, if you're vibing with these two, hit that like button. It keeps my diner buzzing. Got a story about a place that feels like home? Drop it in the comments." Maya chuckled, the tension from her day at Carter & Sons Accounting easing slightly. The day had been grueling. Patricia had nitpicked her work on a new client file, her tone dripping with condescension. Maya's spreadsheets were flawless, but Patricia's critiques felt personal, a reminder of her place as the detail-oriented assistant. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on Ethan. "Long day?" he asked, his gaze steady, as if he could see the weight she carried. "Too long," she said, sipping her coffee. "Work's a battlefield sometimes." "You?" Ethan leaned back, his fingers stilling on the mug. "Same. I took an extra shift at the coffee shop today and spilled espresso on myself twice. Then spent last night on the hotline, talking to someone through a rough patch. His volunteer work at the crisis hotline was a lifeline, a way to atone for losing Noah, his former patient. Maya admired the effort, though his slumped shoulders hinted at the toll it took. She said, "It sounds like you're carrying a lot," and her voice was soft but probing. He nodded, his eyes drifting to the window where city lights blurred in the dusk. "Have you ever felt you're running from something, but it follows you anyway?" Maya's breath caught. She knew that feeling. Every new foster home, every promise of permanence that unraveled, had taught her to keep moving, to avoid attachment. "All the time," she admitted. "I've spent years thinking nothing can hurt me if I stay independent. But it's lonely." The words slipped out, raw and unguarded, surprising her. Ethan's gaze returned to her, a flicker of recognition passing between them. "I used to think helping others would fix me," he said. "Therapy was my way of making sense of the world. Then Noah happened, and I realized I'm as broken as anyone I tried to help." His honesty disarmed her, a crack in the walls they both carried. Sally, wiping a nearby table, chimed in. "Broken's not the end, hun. I've been serving coffee and heartbreak for 20 years. Folks like you keep returning for a reason. Share your comeback story in the comments, y'all." Maya grabbed a fry from the plate Sally slid between them, the crisp edges comforting. "What was Noah like?" she asked, sensing Ethan needed to share more than guilt. His face softened, a rare warmth in his voice. "Bright. I loved debating philosophy and quoting obscure French films. He'd spend an hour explaining why a bad movie was secretly profound. But he was fighting something heavy, depression, that made every day a battle." Maya nodded, recognizing the quiet strength it took to keep going. "It sounds like he trusted you to see him, even in the complex parts." Ethan's fingers tightened around his mug. "He did. That's what kills me. He called me that night and said he was scared. I should have done more." Maya reached across the table, not touching his hand but close enough to feel the warmth. "You did what you could. Sometimes that's all there is." Her words echoed her survival, the countless times she'd pieced herself together after rejection. Ethan's eyes met hers, a silent understanding binding them. Sally paused, leaning on the counter. "You two are something else," she said, her voice softer now. "It reminds me of when I came to this city, running from a bad marriage, with no plan or hope. This diner saved me, gave me a job, a purpose. You're finding something here too, aren't you?" Maya and Ethan exchanged glances, the weight of her words settling in. "Hey, if Sally's wisdom is hitting home, subscribe to catch more of this journey," Sally added with a wink. "Tell us about a stranger who changed your night. Comments are open." As they finished their fries, Ethan spoke again. "I'm trying to rebuild, Maya. The hotline, the odd jobs, their steps. But sitting here, talking to you, feels like a bigger one." Maya's heart lifted, a spark of connection she hadn't felt in years. "Then let's keep taking steps," she said, her voice steady. They left the diner together, the March air cool against their skin, the city's hum a backdrop to their fragile bond. Murray's had become more than a refuge. It was where their stories started intertwining. On March 30th, 2025, Maya Johnson stepped into her apartment building's narrow hallway, the scent of ginger and sesame oil drifting from under Mrs. Lynn's door. It was Sunday afternoon, and the Manhattan streets outside hummed with spring's tentative arrival. Buds on trees, a softer edge to the air. Maya's day at Carter & Sons Accounting had ended early, but not without Patricia's latest jab. A memo questioning Maya's formatting on a client report. Despite its accuracy, the critique stung, a reminder that her master's degree didn't shield her from being seen as less. She paused at her door, key in hand, when Mrs. Lynn's voice called out, Maya, you eat. Too skinny, too quiet. Maya hesitated, her purse heavy on her shoulder and her braided hair still neat from the morning. Mrs. Lin's invitations had become more frequent since Maya started accepting her dumplings, but today felt different, a pull toward connection she wasn't sure she deserved. She knocked, and Mrs. Lin opened the door, her weathered hands dusted with flour. The older woman's apartment was a warm clutter of faded photos and porcelain teacups, a shrine to a life rebuilt after loss. "Sit," Mrs. Lin commanded, pointing to a small table set with steaming dumplings. "You work too much. Need food. Need family." Maya settled into a chair, the aroma of pork and chives wrapping around her like a hug. Mrs. Lin bustled at the counter, her movements precise despite her years. "You remind me of me, long ago," she said, her English careful but precise. "I came to New York in the 1960s after leaving Guangzhou. Husband gone, family far. I learned loneliness has many faces, but food brings people close." Maya listened, her fork pausing mid-bite. Mrs. Lin's story, of immigrating alone, working as a seamstress, losing her husband to illness, carried a quiet resilience that mirrored Maya's survival through foster care. "Sounds like you built something anyway," Maya said, her voice soft. Mrs. Lin nodded, her eyes bright with memory. "This building, these neighbors, my family now. You too, Maya. You don't see it yet, but you belong." The words landed gently, stirring something in Maya's chest. She'd spent years dodging attachment, convinced it came with an expiration date. But Mrs. Lin's insistence, her stubborn care, cracked open a door Maya had long kept locked. The dumplings were perfection, soft dough, savory filling. But the conversation filled her. Mrs. Lin shared tales of her youth, sneaking street food in Guangzhou, sewing late into the night to save for her son's education, and losing contact when he moved abroad. She said, "I choose family here," gesturing to the walls adorned with photos of neighbors, including Maya's shy smile from a recent hallway encounter. "Have you ever thought about family, Maya? Not blood, but chosen?" Maya's throat tightened. She thought of Murray's diner, Ethan's quiet, happy birthday a week ago, and of the way their conversations felt like finding solid ground. "I'm starting to," she admitted, surprising herself. "There's this guy at the diner. Ethan. He's real. It makes me think that maybe I don't have to be alone." Mrs. Lin's smile was knowing. "Good. You bring him dumplings next time. Food fixes many things." She paused, then added, "Like this story? Hit that like button. It's like a dumpling for our channel. Got a neighbor who changed your life? Please share it in the comments." Maya laughed, the sound rare and light. The idea of bringing Ethan food, of stepping into his world beyond the diner, felt bold, almost reckless. At work, she'd been shrinking under Patricia's scrutiny, her confidence chipped away despite her skill. But here, in Mrs. Lin's kitchen, she felt seen, not as an assistant, but as someone capable of connection. "You're persistent," Maya said, finishing her plate. Mrs. Lin shrugged. "Life is persistent. You show up." As Maya helped clear the table, Mrs. Lin pressed a container of dumplings into her hands. "For you. And maybe for Ethan." Maya's cheeks warmed at the suggestion. Back in her studio apartment, she set the container on her counter, its presence a quiet challenge. She thought of Ethan's haunted eyes, his late-night hotline calls, his attempt to rebuild after losing Noah. Could she be brave enough to show up for him, the way Mrs. Lin had for her? That evening, Maya returned to Murray's, the container tucked in her bag. Ethan wasn't there, but Sally greeted her with a grin. "Missed your buddy tonight?" she teased, pouring coffee. He's working late, but he'll be back. You're good for him, you know. Maya's heart lifted, a spark of hope igniting. Hey, if you're rooting for Maya and Ethan, subscribe to see where this goes, Sally called out, wiping the counter. Tell us about a meal that brought you closer to someone. Comments are waiting. Maya sipped her coffee, the diner's warmth settling around her. Mrs. Lynn's words echoed. You belong. For the first time, she dared to believe it might be true. The bell chimed, and she glanced up, half expecting Ethan. The door swung shut, empty, but the promise of their next meeting lingered, a fragile thread pulling her toward a future less lonely. On April 5th, 2025, Maya Johnson pushed through the door of Murray's Diner, the bells chime cutting through the hum of a Saturday evening. Manhattan's streets buzzed outside, spring's warmth coaxing open windows and laughter from passers-by. Her day at Carter & Sons Accounting had been a slog. Patricia's latest critique, a pointed email about inconsistent formatting, had left Maya questioning her place at the firm. But tonight, her thoughts were on Ethan Caldwell, whose absence at the diner last week had left a quiet ache. She spotted him in their booth, his leather jacket crumpled beside him, his hands gripping a coffee mug like a lifeline. His eyes, shadowed with exhaustion, lit up when they met hers. Maya, he said, his voice rough but warm. Missed you last time. She slid into the booth, her braided hair brushing her shoulders as she set down her purse. The diner's familiar scent of fries and coffee grounded her. Got held up, she said, dodging the truth, that she'd lingered at Mrs. Lynn's, avoiding the risk of an empty booth. Sally, the waitress, appeared with a fresh pot. You two and your coffee dates, she teased, pouring a cup. Y'all feeling this spark? Hit that like button to keep it glowing. Got a moment when someone's honesty changed you? Please share it in the comments. Maya's lips twitched, amused by Sally's knack for breaking the tension. Ethan's fingers tapped the mug, a nervous rhythm. Rough shift? He asked, his gaze searching. Maya sighed, thinking of Patricia's email. Just the usual. Work reminding me I'm not enough. You? Ethan's jaw tightened, eyes drifting to the window where city lights flickered. Hotline last night. Tough call. Kept thinking about Noah. His voice cracked on the name, and Maya leaned forward, sensing he needed to unburden something heavier tonight. Noah, she prompted gently. Her fork pausing over the fries, Sally slid between them. Ethan took a breath, and his words were measured. He was 19, at NYU. Full scholarship, philosophy major. Loved arguing about life's big questions, but he was fighting depression, anxiety, stuff that came from more than just school. He talked about feeling out of place, like he had to prove himself daily. The campus wasn't always kind to him. Ethan's voice grew quieter. I saw him for 6 months. Thought we were making progress. He was opening up, smiling more. Then one night, he called me at 3 a.m., said he was scared, like the world was closing in. Maya's chest tightened, recognizing the fear in Ethan's story. Not just Noah's, but her own, from nights in foster homes when she felt invisible. What did you do? She asked. Ethan's hands trembled, setting the mug down. I was exhausted, working 14-hour days. I told him to call the crisis line and talk on Monday. He didn't make it. His roommate found him Sunday pills. He left a note saying he was sorry and couldn't wait. The raw pain in Ethan's voice was a physical force, and Maya fought the urge to reach across the table. Sally paused nearby, wiping the counter. Her usual banter softened. Heard a lot of stories in this place, she said quietly. Folks carrying guilt like it's their job. You're not alone, Ethan. If this hits home, comment about a time you forgave yourself or someone else. Means a lot to us. Ethan managed a faint nod, but his eyes stayed on Maya. I was his therapist, he said. I'm trained to see the signs. I failed him. Maya shook her head, her voice steady despite the ache in her heart. You're human, Ethan. Humans miss things. I've spent years blaming myself for not being enough, good enough, perfect enough to keep a family. But sometimes it's not about you. It's about what they're carrying. Her words echoed her survival. The countless times she'd pieced herself together after being sent back to the system. Ethan's gaze held hers. A flicker of something. Hope, maybe, breaking through his guilt. He leaned forward, his voice low. How do you live with it? The what-ifs? Maya thought of Mrs. Lynn's dumplings, how they'd felt like a promise of belonging. You find something to hold on to, she said. Something real, like this booth, these fries, or someone who listens. Ethan's lips curved into a small, genuine smile like yours. The words landed softly, and Maya felt a warmth spread through her, a connection she hadn't dared name. Sally returned, refilling their coffee. You two are writing a whole novel here, she said, grinning. If you're loving this story, subscribe to see where it goes. Tell us about a conversation that changed your night. Comments are open. Maya and Ethan shared a look, the diner's hum wrapping around them like a cocoon. They talked longer, about Noah's love for bad movies, about Maya's knack for finding order in chaos. As they left, the April air was cool, the city's lights a backdrop to their steps. See you soon? Ethan asked, his voice tentative. Maya nodded. Count on it. On April 10th, 2025, Maya Johnson stood outside Ethan Caldwell's apartment building, a pre-war walk-up on a quiet Manhattan street, clutching a container of Mrs. Lynn's homemade soup. The spring dusk cast long shadows, and the air carried the faint scent of blooming cherry trees. Her heart raced, her braided hair swaying as she hesitated at the buzzer. At Carter & Sons Accounting, the day had been a familiar grind. Patricia's sharp email about streamlining processes had felt like another jab at Maya's competence, despite her flawless work. But Mrs. Lynn's words from their last Sunday meal echoed. You bring soup to that, Ethan. Food fixes many things. Showing up uninvited felt like stepping off a cliff, but Maya pressed the buzzer, driven by a need to bridge the gap between the diner's safety and the real world. Yeah? Ethan's voice crackled through the intercom, rough with fatigue. It's Maya. I brought soup. A long pause followed, and she nearly turned back, the container warm against her palms. Then the door buzzed open. The hallway smelled of old wood and distant cooking, the stairs creaking under her steps. Ethan leaned against his apartment doorframe, his gray t-shirt faded, his eyes heavy, but softening at her sight. Soup, he said, testing the word like a foreign phrase. Mrs. Lynn's recipe? Maya replied, suddenly self-conscious. She thinks it fixes things. Ethan stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. His apartment was sparse. A worn couch, stacks of psychology books mixed with poetry, a single lamp casting a warm glow. It spoke of someone who'd lost much and hadn't replaced it. Not much to look at, he said, following her gaze. It's peaceful, Maya countered, meaning it. They moved to the small galley kitchen, heating the soup in silence, their movements careful, as if sharing space was a new language. As the aroma of ginger and chicken filled the air, Maya felt the weight of her bold act. When's the last time someone cooked for you? She asked, setting out bowls. Ethan paused, a spoon in hand. Honestly, can't remember. Before everything fell apart, maybe 2 years ago, he spoke of his life post-therapy. Barista shifts at a corner cafe, late nights answering crisis hotline calls, trying to piece himself back together after losing Noah. Maya nodded, picturing him pouring coffee or listening to strangers' fears, his guilt a constant shadow. "Sounds like you're trying," she said. "That's more than most." Ethan's lips twitched, a faint smile. "Trying's all I've got." "What about you? What brings Maya Johnson to my doorstep with soup?" She stirred her bowl, the steam rising between them. "Mrs. Lynn," she said, half laughing. "She's relentless. But also, you. You're real, Ethan. I've spent years keeping people out. Foster care taught me that. 17 homes, no roots. You learn to expect the door to close." Her voice was steady, but the admission felt raw, like peeling back a bandage. Ethan's gaze held hers. No judgment, just quiet understanding. "I get it," he said. "I used to think helping others kept me grounded. Now I'm just adrift." Mrs. Lynn's soup warmed them as they sat on the couch, the city's hum a distant backdrop. "Tell me about her," Ethan said, his tone curious. Maya smiled, thinking of the older woman's tenacity. "Mrs. Lynn's a force. Came here alone decades ago. Built a life from nothing. She sees everyone in the building as family, me included, whether I want it or not." Ethan chuckled. "Sounds like she's got you figured out." "Like this story? Hit that like button. It's like soup for the soul. Got a neighbor like Mrs. Lynn? Share their story in the comments." Maya's laugh was soft, but her thoughts turned inward. Mrs. Lynn's care had stirred something. A belief that she could be more than her past and show up for someone else. "She told me I remind her of her younger self," Maya said. "Lonely, stubborn, but she chose family anyway. Makes me think I could too." Ethan set down his bowl, his eyes searching. "You already are, Maya. Showing up here, with soup. That's choosing." The words settled between them, fragile and heavy. Maya felt a crack in the walls she'd built, a warmth spreading where fear usually lived. Outside, the city moved on, sirens weaving through the evening. Inside, two people shared a meal, their truths mingling with the steam. "Thanks for this," Ethan said, his voice low. "I didn't know how much I needed it." Maya met his gaze. Neither did I. As she left, the container empty, Sally's voice from the diner echoed in her mind. "Subscribe to see where this goes, folks. Tell us about a time you took a risk for someone. Comments are open." On April 15th, 2025, Maya Johnson sat in Mrs. Lynn's cozy apartment, the scent of jasmine tea mingling with the spring breeze slipping through an open window. Manhattan's hum filtered in, distant sirens, the chatter of neighbors. But inside, the space felt like a sanctuary. Maya's day at Carter & Sons Accounting had been draining. Patricia had dismissed her proposal for a new budgeting system, calling it overambitious despite its precision. The sting lingered, but a more pressing challenge awaited. Mrs. Lynn, her hands busy folding dumplings, looked up with a rare urgency. "Maya, I need a favor. Amara, Keisha's girl, needs watching today. Keisha works a double shift, and my granddaughter is sick. You help?" Maya's stomach nodded. She'd never cared for a child, her foster care years leaving her wary of nurturing roles. "Mrs. Lynn, I don't know anything about kids," she said, her braided hair shifting as she shook her head. Mrs. Lynn's eyes softened. "You know lonely. You know, needing someone to care. Same thing, just a smaller person." The words hit hard, echoing Maya's longing for connection, stirred by her talks with Ethan at Murray's diner. She nodded, hesitant, but unable to refuse. 20 minutes later, Amara Patterson sat across from Maya on Mrs. Lynn's floral couch, her purple dress adorned with a unicorn, her cornrows clicking with colorful beads. The 8-year-old clutched a worn copy of The Secret Garden, her dark eyes wary but curious. "Mama says you're watching me today," she said, her voice polite, practiced. "I'm Maya, from next door," Maya replied, her hands fidgeting. "I hear you help Mrs. Lynn with groceries." Amara's face brightened. "She says you make good dumplings now." The silence stretched, awkward but not unkind. Maya scrambled for a plan. Food, activities, anything to fill the hours. "Hungry?" she asked. Amara opened her backpack and revealed a packed lunch from her mother, Keisha, a hospital aide who was saving for nursing school. "Mama's working late again," Amara said, pulling out a sandwich and a book. "She's tired a lot, but she's saving for a bigger apartment. Maybe a cat." Maya smiled, sensing the girl's pride in her mother's grit, a mirror to Keisha's story. A single mom who'd left a toxic relationship to build a life for Amara. "What are you reading?" Maya asked, nodding at the book. Amara held up The Secret Garden. "It's about a girl, Mary, who's got no parents and finds this hidden garden. She makes it beautiful again." Her voice carried a quiet wisdom, as if she understood being overlooked. "Mama says family's not just blood. People show up." Maya's breath caught, the words echoing Mrs. Lynn's lessons about chosen family. "Your mama's right," she said. "Mrs. Lynn's like that for me. Maybe for you, too." Amara nodded, her beads clicking. "She makes me eat vegetables, but she's nice." They laughed, the tension easing. Maya helped Amara with her 3rd grade math, fractions unfolding on a notepad, while Amara explained The Secret Garden's plot, Mary's loneliness, the garden's rebirth. "Do you think gardens can be secret?" Amara asked, her eyes bright. "Is like places waiting for someone to find them?" Maya thought of Murray's, Ethan's quiet presence, and Mrs. Lynn's kitchen. "I think so," she said. "People can be like that too, hidden until someone sees them." Mrs. Lynn poked her head in, setting down tea. "Good job, Maya. You're natural with kids." She winked. "Like this story? Hit that like button. It's like tea for our channel. Got a kid who taught you something big? Please share it in the comments." Maya's cheeks warmed, but Amara's grin steadied her. They spent the afternoon reading. Amara curled against Maya's side, her voice animated as she described Mary's transformation. Maya felt a shift, a realization that caring didn't require perfection, just presence. When Keisha arrived, her scrubs wrinkled from a 12-hour shift, she found them on the couch, Amara reading aloud. "How'd it go?" Keisha asked, her voice heavy with exhaustion, but warm with gratitude. "She's fantastic," Maya said, meaning it. "Intelligent, funny, wise." Amara beamed, hugging Maya tightly. Maya helped with fractions and said people are like gardens. Keisha's eyes softened. "Thank you, Maya. It's hard to trust someone with her." "If this moves you, subscribe to see more," she added with a tired smile, as if channeling Sally. "Tell us about someone who stepped up for you. Comments are open." As Keisha and Amara left, Maya lingered in Mrs. Lynn's living room, the day's warmth settling in her chest. She'd spent years believing she wasn't built for nurturing, her past a blueprint of rejection. But Amara's trust, Keisha's gratitude, and Mrs. Lynn's faith suggested otherwise. Caring was less about knowing how and more about choosing to show up. The thought carried her back to her apartment, where Mrs. Lynn's soup container sat, a reminder of her leap for Ethan. She smiled, wondering what he'd say about her day with Amara. On April 20th, 2025, a spring storm battered Manhattan, turning streets into rivers and sending pedestrians scurrying for cover. Maya Johnson trudged through the downpour, her coat soaked, her braided hair plastered to her scalp. The chaos outside mirrored her inner turmoil after a brutal day at Carter & Sons Accounting. Patricia had spent the morning dissecting Maya's work on a major client file, her tone icy as she questioned every calculation, not for errors, but to undermine Maya's confidence. In the afternoon meeting, Patricia introduced her as our reliable assistant, a slight that burned despite Maya's master's degree and years of expertise. The dismissal wasn't new, but today it pressed a tender bruise, making her question why she stayed in a job that diminished her. Her shoes squelched when she reached Murray's diner, and her mood teetered between defiance and defeat. The bell chimed as she entered. The diner's warmth starkly contrasted to the storm outside. She scanned the familiar booths, expecting Ethan Caldwell's steady presence, but froze when she saw him with another blonde, polished woman in a tailored suit that screamed corporate success. Dr. Emily Carter, Ethan's former colleague, sat across from him, her posture rigid, her voice low but intense. Ethan's hands were clenched on the table, his shoulders hunched as if bracing for impact. Maya's instinct was to turn back, retreat to her apartment, and pretend she hadn't seen this. The sight of Ethan with someone from his past life, a life before his fall, stirred a pang of insecurity. Was she just a diner companion, a fleeting distraction? But something in Ethan's posture, the familiar slump of doubt she recognized from her mirror, rooted her in place. Sally, the waitress, appeared with a towel and a steaming coffee mug. "You look like you swam here, hun," she said, handing Maya the towel. "Don't let that storm chase you off. If this story's pulling you in, hit that like button. It keeps us dry. Got a rainy day that changed your path? Drop it in the comments." Maya dried her hands, her eyes flicking to Ethan's booth. "Is that seat taken?" she asked, gesturing to the chair across from him as Emily stood abruptly, her heels clicking on the linoleum. Emily brushed past, leaving a cloud of sharp perfume and barely contained frustration. Ethan looked up, his face etched with exhaustion. "Maya, you're soaked," he said, his voice a mix of relief and strain. She slid into the booth, the coffee's warmth seeping into her fingers. "It's raining," she said dryly. Seemed like a night for it. Ethan's gaze drifted to the window, where rain blurred the streetlights into abstract streaks. "Rough day?" he asked, echoing their familiar rhythm. "The kind that makes you wonder why you bother," Maya replied, thinking of Patricia's condescension. "Work reminds me that I'm not seen how I want to be." "You?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "That was Emily Carter, my old partner at the practice. She's pushing me to fight for my license at a hearing next month. Says I'm letting Noah's death define me." Maya studied him, noting the tension in his shoulders. "And you disagree?" she asked. Ethan ran a hand through his damp hair, leaving it askew. "I don't know. She thinks I'm wallowing, that Noah wouldn't want me to quit helping people. She's probably right, but—" He trailed off, his fingers tracing the mug's rim. "She didn't know Noah like I did, didn't see how hard he fought beneath that sharp mind. I failed him, Maya. How do I trust myself not to fail again?" His voice's rawness echoed Maya's, her fear that she'd never be enough. Not for Patricia, not for the families who let her go. "I get that," she said. "I'm fighting to be seen as more than an assistant at work. But I keep showing up, even when it hurts. Maybe you keep showing up too." Ethan's eyes met hers, a flicker of hope breaking through. "You make it sound simple," he said. "It's not," she replied. "But it's something." Sally paused by their table, refilling their coffee. "She said that you two are like a storm shelter for each other. her grin soft. It reminds me of my first year here, when I found my footing after leaving everything behind. If you're feeling this, subscribe to catch more of their story. Share a moment when someone steadied you in a storm. Comments are open. Maya and Ethan exchanged glances, the diner's hum wrapping around them. The rain eased outside, but inside, their shared doubts forged a deeper bond, a quiet promise to face the uncertainties together. On April 27, 2025, at 2:17 a.m., Maya Johnson's phone jolted her from a rare deep sleep. The screen's glow harsh in her dark studio apartment. Manhattan's distant hum filtered through her window, but the urgency in Ethan Caldwell's voice on the line drowned it out. "Maya, I'm sorry to call so late," he said, his words strained and barely recognizable. "I'm at the 14th precinct. There was an incident. I need someone." Her heart raced as she pulled on jeans and a sweater, her braided hair tucked under a scarf. "Are you hurt?" she asked, already halfway out the door. "Not physically," he said, "but something's come up. About Noah. I never told you everything." 20 minutes later, Maya sat across from Ethan in a sterile police station interview room, the air sharp with disinfectant and tension. Ethan's hands shook as he gripped a paper cup of water, his leather jacket slung over the chair, and his eyes hollowed under the fluorescent lights. The room felt like a cage, amplifying the weight of his words. "It wasn't just a patient," he began, his voice a whisper. "Noah's father, James Thompson, was my friend from medical school. We were close study partners, best men at each other's weddings. I watched Noah grow up and saw him at birthday parties and graduations. When James asked me to treat Noah's depression, I should have said no. Ethical rules are clear about dual relationships." Maya's stomach churned, the revelation shifting the ground beneath her. She thought of her guarded walls, built to protect against betrayal, now tested by Ethan's omission. "You knew him personally," she said, her voice steady but searching. Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on the table. "I could handle it, knowing Noah would help me help him. I was wrong. James found out I never disclosed our relationship in Noah's file. He confronted me tonight outside my apartment, drunk, angry, shouting that I killed his son and lied to cover it. The words hit like a cold wave. Maya pictured James, a lawyer who'd channeled his grief into a quest for answers, his life unraveling after Noah's death. Ethan continued, his voice raw. "Neighbors called the police. James didn't press charges, but he's taking it to the licensing board hearing next week. He thinks I'm responsible, and he's not wrong. I hid the truth to protect my license, Maya. I'm a coward." His hands clenched, the cup crumpling slightly. Maya leaned back, processing the weight of his confession. At Carter & Sons, she'd faced her battles. Patricia's latest critique had dismissed her work on a tax audit as adequate, a word that cut deeper than it should. But this was different. A breach of trust that echoed her foster care years, when promises crumbled under hidden truths. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, quiet but firm. Ethan met her eyes, his glistening. "I was ashamed. Admitting it means I didn't just fail Noah as a therapist. I failed him as someone who loved him like family." The room's silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of a distant vending machine. Maya thought of Mrs. Lynn's soup, Amara's trust, the fragile bonds she'd begun to build. "You made a mistake," she said finally. "But you cared about Noah. That's real. You need to tell the truth at the hearing, to the board, to James. Not just about what you did wrong, but why you cared." Ethan's shoulders slumped, a mix of fear and hope in his expression. "What if they take my license for good?" he asked. "Then you start over," Maya said, "like you've been doing with your coffee shifts and your hotline calls." like I'm trying to do. A knock interrupted them. An officer leaned in, his voice neutral. "Mr. Caldwell, you're free to go." As they stepped into the pre-dawn darkness, the city's pulse soft against the quiet, Ethan stopped on the station steps. "I understand if this changes things between us," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya thought of her instinct to run, honed by years of impermanent homes. But she also thought of Amara's words about family being those who show up. "It changes nothing," she said, taking his hand briefly. "We're in this together. If this story's hitting you, hit that like button. It keeps us going. Ever had to face a hard truth? Please share it in the comments." They walked into the fading night, the sky lightening at the edges. Sally's voice from Murray's echoed in Maya's mind. Subscribe to see where this goes, folks. Tell us about a moment you stood by someone through their worst. Comments are open. The weight of Ethan's truth lingered, but so did their promise to face it. A bond forged in the raw honesty of a sleepless night. On May 4th, 2025, Maya Johnson sat in the stark hallway of the New York State Board of Professional Conduct, the gray walls and fluorescent lights draining the warmth from the spring morning outside. Her fingers twisted around a paper coffee cup, her braided hair neatly tucked under a scarf, her heart heavy with the weight of Ethan Caldwell's upcoming hearing. At Carter & Sons Accounting, she'd faced her battle that week. After months of Patricia's undermining, Maya had presented a streamlined tax audit plan directly to the senior partner, Mr. Carter. Her voice was steady, and she'd outlined its efficiency, earning a nod and a promotion to junior accountant. The victory was hard-won, a reclaiming of her worth. But today, her focus was on Ethan, pacing before the frosted glass doors of Conference Room B, his tie loosened, his hands trembling. Ethan said, "You don't have to be here," stopping in front of her, his eyes shadowed with doubt. This could get messy. Maya stood, her gaze firm. "We've been through too much for me to walk away now." Through the glass, she glimpsed Dr. Emily Carter, her blonde hair in a tight bun, her expression unreadable as she sat at the conference table. Beside her was James Thompson, Noah's father, his suit rumpled, his face hollow with grief. Maya had expected anger in his eyes, but she saw only exhaustion. A man carved out by loss, seeking answers rather than vengeance. A woman in a navy blazer opened the door. "Mr. Caldwell, the board is ready." Ethan turned to Maya, his voice low. "If this goes wrong—" "It won't," she interrupted, her confidence more for him than herself. "And if it does, we'll figure it out together." The doors closed, leaving Maya with Mrs. Lynn, who'd arrived with a thermos of tea and a quiet presence. "He's a good man," Mrs. Lynn said, pouring a cup. "Mistakes don't change that. You know this." Maya nodded, thinking of Amara's wisdom about family and her rage when confronting Patricia. "If this story's touching you, hit that like button. It's like tea for the soul," Mrs. Lynn added with a sly grin. "Share when you stood up for what's right. Comments are waiting." The hearing stretched 3 hours, fragments of raised voices and long silences seeping through the door. Maya's thoughts drifted to Amara, likely at school now, reading The Secret Garden or tackling fractions, unaware of the adults fighting for redemption. When the doors finally opened, Ethan emerged, his hair disheveled, his face a map of exhaustion and relief. Dr. Emily Carter followed, her composure cracked, offering Maya a curt nod before passing. Then James Thompson appeared, his eyes red-rimmed but clearer, his lawyer's poise softened by something new. James stopped before Ethan, the air thick with 20 years of friendship and one devastating loss. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice rough. "What you said there about Noah trusting you and calling you that night because you were his safe place, I never saw it that way." Ethan's throat worked, struggling for words. James, I failed him. I should have disclosed our friendship. James shook his head. You should have. Yes. But Noah was sick, Ethan. Depression lied to him about his worth. You gave him 6 months of hope, of feeling seen. That wasn't a failure. That was love. The words hung in the sterile hallway, bridging their shared pain. James extended his hand. We may not be friends again. The hurt's too deep, but I don't want to carry this anger. Noah wouldn't either. Ethan shook his hand, tears streaming down his face. I loved him like my own, he whispered. James nodded. I know. That's why it hurts so much. As James walked away, Maya felt a weight lift, the air lighter despite the antiseptic chill. Ethan slumped into the chair beside her. What's the verdict? Maya asked. 6-month suspension, he said, staring at the ceiling. Probation for 2 years. Ethics training. I thought I'd feel relieved, but it's empty. Mrs. Lynn tisked. Not empty. Clean. Like a house after sweeping out old dust. Ethan laughed. A slight, broken sound. Mrs. Lynn, you're something else. If you're with us on this journey, subscribe to see more, she said, her eyes twinkling. Tell us about a time forgiveness set you free. Comments are open. Maya took Ethan's hand, her touch steady. You told the truth. That's a start. He looked at her, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Thanks for being here, Maya. For seeing me through this. Outside, Manhattan's spring sun broke through the clouds, painting the gray building in shades of possibility. Maya's promotion and Ethan's second chance felt like parallel victories, fragile but real, built on the courage to face failure and keep going. On October 15th, 2025, Maya Johnson stood in the community center on 127th Street, the late afternoon sun filtering through high windows, casting golden patches on the linoleum floor. Manhattan's autumn hum, crisp leaves crunching underfoot, distant horns, faded as she watched Ethan Caldwell lead his first group therapy session since his license reinstatement. 6 months after the board's ruling, he sat at the center of a circle of 8. Veterans grappling with PTSD, single mothers navigating depression, elderly neighbors facing loss. His voice, steady and gentle, guided a young woman through a trembling story of grief, his attention a quiet anchor. Maya's heart swelled with pride, her braided hair catching the light as she leaned against the wall, a thermos of Mrs. Lynn's tea in hand. Her own life had shifted since May. At Carter & Sons Accounting, her promotion to junior accountant had brought new responsibilities, overseeing client audits, mentoring interns, and freeing her from Patricia's shadow. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was hers, a testament to her resolve. Beyond the office, her apartment building had become a hub of connection. Keisha, Amara's mother, had started joining Maya and Mrs. Lynn for weekly dinners, her nursing school textbooks piled beside plates of dumplings. Amara, now a regular in Maya's apartment 3 afternoons a week, filled the space with chatter about school and secret gardens. Their bond, born of that first babysitting day, had grown into something unspoken, but vital. Mrs. Lynn appeared beside Maya, her small frame wrapped in a cardigan, 2 cups of tea in hand. She observed that you're proud of him, her voice warm with certainty. Maya nodded, accepting a cup. I am. 6 months ago, he wasn't sure he'd make it through. Now look at him. Through the glass doors, Ethan listened as a veteran shared a nightmare's weight, his nod encouraging, his presence healed. Mrs. Lynn's eyes crinkled. And look at you, Maya. Not so alone now. Maya's chest tightened, the truth settling in. She'd found a rhythm with Keisha, Amara, and Mrs. Lynn, a chosen family that didn't demand perfection, Keisha's story had unfolded over those dinners. A single mother who'd left a controlling partner, working double shifts at the hospital to save for nursing school. "I want Amara to see me do this," Keisha had said, her voice fierce despite exhaustion. "To know that you can build something from nothing." Mrs. Lynn, too, shared more about her years as a seamstress and her choice to treat neighbors as kin after losing her family to distance. She'd said, "This building, these people," gesturing to photos on her wall, "they're my home now. You too." Maya's throat caught, the weight of belonging both tender and terrifying. Amara worked on homework at a corner table, her pencil pausing as she glanced up to check Maya's presence. Their routine, math help, stories, snacks, had become a lifeline, a reminder that Maya could nurture despite her past. "Keisha's working late again?" Mrs. Lynn asked, sipping her tea. Maya nodded. "Double shift, but she's close to enrolling in that nursing program. Amara is already planning to have a cat and a 2-bedroom place." Mrs. Lynn chuckled. "Smart girl, like you. If this family's warming your heart, hit that like button. It's like dumplings for us," she said with a wink. "Got a chosen family story? Please share it in the comments." The session ended, participants filing out with careful steps, as if carrying fragile truths. Ethan approached, his face a mix of exhaustion and fulfillment. "How'd it go?" Maya asked, her voice soft. "Reasonable steps," he said, running a hand through his hair. Maria talked about her son for the first time. Frank opened up about his nightmares, small, but real. Amara looked up, her voice bright. "Are we going to Murray's?" "It's Thursday." Their weekly dinners, Ethan, Maya, Amara, Mrs. Lynn, had become a ritual, a sanctuary where Sally kept crayons for Amara and extra pickles for Ethan. "Of course," Maya said, helping Amara pack her books. "But no ketchup on your carrots this time." Amara giggled. "That was creative," Mrs. Lynn said. Ethan grinned, the weight of his past lighter in their laughter. "You're all saving me," he said, his eyes on Maya. She met his gaze, feeling the truth of it. "We're keeping each other," she replied. Sally's voice seemed to echo from the diner. "Subscribe to catch more of this crew, folks. Tell us about a tradition that feels like family. Comments are open." As they left for Murray's, the autumn air crisp, Maya felt a quiet certainty. This was home, built not by blood, but by showing up. On October 22nd, 2025, Maya Johnson settled into the familiar booth at Murray's Diner, the bells chime greeting her like an old friend. The Manhattan evening carried autumn's crisp bite, leaves swirling outside under streetlights. The diner buzzed with warmth, fries sizzling, coffee brewing, voices blending in a cozy hum. Across from Maya sat Ethan Caldwell, his leather jacket draped over the seat, a relaxed smile softening his once haunted eyes. Beside her, Amara doodled on a napkin, her unicorn dress bright against the worn vinyl. Mrs. Lynn sipped tea, her cardigan a patchwork of comfort, while Keisha, fresh from a hospital shift, tucked a nursing textbook under her elbow. Their Thursday dinners had become a sacred ritual, transforming Murray's from Maya's refuge of solitude into a haven of belonging. Maya's life had steadied since spring. At Carter & Sons Accounting, her role as junior accountant brought new challenges, leading audits and training interns, and her confidence grew with each success. Patricia's critiques had faded, overshadowed by Mr. Carter's trust. Beyond work, her apartment building pulsed with connection. Keisha, now enrolled in nursing school, shared stories of late-night study sessions and how her dream of a better life for Amara was taking shape. Mrs. Lynn, ever the anchor, wove them together with meals and wisdom, and her past as a seamstress and immigrant is a quiet testament to resilience. Amara, a constant in Maya's afternoons, filled her studio with laughter and questions, their bond a steady light. Sally, the waitress, slid a plate of fries onto the table, her grin wide. "My favorite crew," she called, tucking crayons behind the counter for Amara. "You lot make this place home. If this family's warming you up, hit that like button. It's like fries for our channel. Got a spot that feels like family? Please share it in the comments." Maya laughed, her braided hair catching the diner's glow as she grabbed a fry. Ethan's hand brushed hers, a casual touch that felt like a promise. "Extra pickles?" he asked, nodding at his burger. Sally winked. "Always, hun." Amara looked up, her eyes bright. "Maya, make a wish." She produced a small candle from her backpack, planting it in a cupcake Sally had slipped onto the table. Not for a birthday, but because Amara believed wishes were for any day. The flame flickered, a tiny beacon in the diner's light. Maya closed her eyes, the memory of her lonely birthday 7 months ago surfacing. Back then, she'd wished to escape the exhaustion of solitude, convinced she didn't deserve more. Now, surrounded by laughter and warmth, she hoped for something new, the wisdom to cherish this family she'd found, to hold it without fear of loss. She opened her eyes, blowing out the candle. Ethan's gaze held hers, tender and knowing. "What'd you wish for?" he asked, his voice soft. "Nothing," Maya said, her hand finding his across the table. "I have everything right here." Amara giggled, folding her napkin into an origami crane under Mrs. Lynn's guidance. Keisha smiled, her exhaustion eased by the moment. "You're stuck with us now," she teased. "If this story's got you smiling, subscribe to catch more," she added, echoing Sally's spirit. "Tell us about a wish that came true. Comments are open." Sally leaned against the counter, humming as she watched them. "This place has seen a lot," she said, her voice soft. "Folks come in broken, leave a little less so. You two, Ethan, Maya, you're proof of that." Her words settled over them, a reminder of their journey. Ethan had rebuilt his purpose, and his therapy sessions at the community center were a testament to his growth. Maya had found her voice at work and in this makeshift family. Mrs. Lynn's dumplings, Amara's stories, Keisha's grit. They'd woven a tapestry of care, each thread a choice to show up. Outside, Manhattan danced its restless rhythm, millions searching for connection. Inside Murray's, 4 people sat in a circle of light, proof that family could bloom in unexpected places. Maya looked around at Amara's crayon scribbles, Ethan's steady presence, Mrs. Lynn's quiet wisdom, and Keisha's determined smile. Belonging wasn't earned, she realized. It was accepted, a gift given by those who chose to stay. The diner's warmth wrapped around them as they laughed over fries, a sanctuary where loneliness had no place.